damn kids with their YouTubes and their avocado toast.
Okay, Boomer.
You kids don't know how good you have it.
Okay, Boomer. Hey, Dad, what's the Wi-Fi password? I need to know the Wi-Fi password.
Okay, Zoomer.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of OK Boomer, OK Zoomer. I am your host, Ghantt, and with me is Daddysquatch. Although, this is a Daddysquatch episode, and he decided to pick a topic, because I figured, we would go back and forth and suggest a topic, and I guess this is going to be the most, intense episode, or possible, we don't know where things are going to go, but when he said this idea, I think it could work because the idea is like, us airing out, because there is sort of a gap between, Generation Z, Generation X, and the Boomers. And the idea is to basically, talk with each other and kind of, basically explain, kind of our grievances with each other. And yeah, basically just, try to get some understanding. Or this might lead to an interesting debate and me and Daddysquatch needing to blow off some steam with 3 months of beer and silence. So, yeah. So, Daddysquatch, since this is your topic, I figured you should have the first volley, and then we'll just go back and forth kind of thing.
Oh, well.
I am a gentleman.
Oh, you are a gentleman. Well, I am too. I guess one of the things that where I get probably the most exposure to younger people is at work, and I guess some of the things the younger people do at work very different from when I was young and starting a new job. And I don't know if this is kind of predicated by COVID or just the thing, but what I see is I don't see, and you're an exception to the rule. I know you work hard, but I don't see it working hard ethic. You just start a new job. You should be, kind of like the old thing where you get in there early, stay late, you learn new tasks, you'd put your nose to the ground, try to get the experience and try to learn new things, but it's just the latest generation of engineers that I work with. They come in there, they stroll in about 9:30 in the morning, they leave before I do, and they expect to be promoted, to come in at top dollar, and to be on the best programs. And I'm like, well, you haven't learned anything yet. Why should you be? What value add do you have? You're a young person, and you haven't had the experience. And that's one thing that I look at coming out of college, and people say, "Well, I've got a college education." Well, I hate to say this, but you can, since you've been in the workforce now too, how much of that college education did you actually apply to your jobs?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. It's a ticket of admission. So it's basically said you can be trained and you can grasp complex, issues or problems or whatever. But it doesn't mean that, well, I've got a degree in engineering and I should be an expert engineer. And it's like, well, no. Typically, your first couple of jobs, you're learning to be an engineer, not college. College doesn't do us. But I don't know, there's that sense of entitlement when they first come in there that, hey, I got this degree here, I should be team leader. There's a bunch of us old experienced engineers, and we also got our college degrees too, and we're kind of like, what? So that's one of my...
Yeah. I would say as far as my response to that, on behalf of the Zoomers, I don't know, I imagine, that boils down to what I almost want to say, because I feel that there has been an overhype on the institution of college in general. And the idea is that if I have a college degree, then that I have this high status kind of thing. And I feel like that we as a society, because I imagine back in your generation, having a college degree was, a really impressive thing. But nowadays, it's kind of a case of, I think as a society, we need to start moving away from that ivory pillar that we have for college. Because you can be successful without a college degree. You can do some pretty cool stuff. There are alternatives. There are some pretty impressive alternatives. I mean, I've heard of stories of people making oodles of money, with no college degree whatsoever, working on oil drilling sites. And I think a lot of it is because people have that idea of, I have the college degree, that must mean I have, this high status kind of thing. And I think, that's an issue. And to the point about the work ethic, which is a different topic, like why do boomer or zoomers, not seem to put themselves to the grinding wheel? I would say it's more of a case of a lot of zoomers feel that their work wouldn't be appreciated. Like it's one of those cases of they'll work hard if they know that, that there will be a benefit in it. And I've seen a lot of zoomers complain online about how don't give yourself to, these corporate overlords kind of thing. Make sure that when you work hard that you're valued for your work. Don't sell yourself short, that kind of thing. And I hear from a lot of zoomers, is that they feel that their work isn't respected. So it's a case of why should I?
Yeah, that's a good point because I know that typically in most companies I work in, if I'm not appreciated or whatever, it's it can be one person, it could be another person, and you try to either adjust or move within the company. But at some point, you just get to the stage that you know, for some reason, I'm putting in all this work, I'm learning things and stuff like that, and I'm seeing, case example, I worked on a project. So I was the oldest of the 4 people or 5 people put on this brand new project. And I was the most experienced. And I basically mentored the other 4 as we were going through the project. And we got done with the project. Yay, we shipped on time and stuff like that. The other 4 got promoted. And they said, well, you're too valuable. We need you in this position. Which is what? But the other 4 were complaining. They're constantly in the manager's office. Well, I worked on this project and I should be, promoted. And yet the reason they got the visibility was the work I put in. And that's some of the things is, you got to earn it. I agree. What you're saying is that once you've put that effort in, if it's not appreciated, or noticed, at that point, project, and it's like, yeah, but after a while, after some time, you may say, okay, well, now it's time to move on to another position, and it may be within the company or outside the company. But during that time that you're working hard, you're gaining experience and you're gaining a good foothold that maybe this company won't appreciate you or this department, but the one you're going to move to will, because you're going to hit the ground running instead of being mentored or trained in that position.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Agree. I do agree with you about college. I think college is overrated. Now, when I went to college, like you said, it was a different time, a different era. Not that many people did go to college as much as, today you got to go to college, and stuff. And I agree. I think that some of the positions that you get, do you need a college education? You take your sister, uh, that's closest in age to you. We don't have a nickname for her, but she did college for a semester. It wasn't her thing. She took a job as a CNA, did the training for that, and then she went to a school that trained in the medical position, and she became medical assistant, and then she went back and went to school and became a registered nurse,
Hmm.
and now she's went back for more training, more testing, and now she's a very highly ranked specialized nurse, and she makes good money. But she did it without the traditional college, like you said. I mean, she's well respected now, and she helps a lot of people, and she makes good money, and in a good field. She enjoys her field, and she enjoys the work. So you can do it without like I said, the college thing. She worked hard, and she put all the things in there. So again, it's that work ethic.
Like, one of
Uh,
the things that really makes to me, like, I would say if you're going into a certain career field, like, say, business or, you know, becoming in medicine or engineering or law, like, I'd say, like, look at the job opportunities in those fields, decide, like, and if you have to go through college, that kind of thing. And even then, I would say maybe spend a few years, at community college and transfer the credits, which is what I ended up doing, to help
or
save on some cash.
that go in the military. I mean, people come out and they say, "Well, I'm going to go to college to find myself." No, no. I mean, college is very expensive now. And the other thing too is you sit there and people keep taking more and more loans to go to these colleges, and then they get out and they're hamstrung because they've got you know a huge college debt. I mean, your oldest sister, when she graduated, she was very much involved in uh, sports at the college she was at, so she didn't have a part-time job. And because of that, she took out loans, and when she graduated, she was very much in debt. But what she did is when she started working, whatever, she did a lot of side jobs, and she lived in little dumpy apartments and all this, but she paid off that debt. And now that she's clear of that debt, her and her husband now, they're investing in real estate in a pretty lucrative market, and they're doing good. I mean,
I mean, I saw their new place. It's very nice.
it's very nice, and it's in a very high real estate, and that's their second house. I mean, their first house, it's a duplex. They're going to have that paid off, and then boom, they've got income coming in from two renters to pay off the current house, and then they'll probably get another house. And that's how they do it. It's just they're thinking. They're working hard. They both work a lot of hours, and they have fun too. But they're good with the kids and stuff. But they're both
Yeah.
hardworking people and stuff. And that's the key. I hate to say that, but people are. What I don't like is when people expect opportunity or expect to get things. They got to work for it. They got to earn it. They got to make it happen. And maybe your first job, you work hard, and they don't, just like you say, you don't recognize it. After getting some good experience, you move on to another job or another
Yeah.
company.
Yeah. And
But
uh, yeah, what were you saying?
well, I said, the other thing that irritates me to no end is this working from home. If the career is working from home, that's fine. But I mean, like in engineering, could you do your job from your apartment?
Trying to think about my job as a whole. I mean, actually, I would say no because, like, technically, I could probably do a good portion of my work from home, but number one, I like to do it at the office because I like to be able to go in person to people to ask questions. And the second reason why I would do like a, at the office, you know, environment is I like to keep home and work separate, so I don't like to intermingle the two. And the third reason why is that, and this was something that was brought up, during one of our, meetings, is the importance of being able to communicate with the people who are working, on our products, which I won't discuss what we're working on, kind of, NDA kind of thing, but it is essential to have that communication between engineering and the technicians and manufacturing. We have to have those lines of communication.
I agree. But and that's one of the things that, I get when people take advantage of that, you know, oh, I'm going to work from home. Well, I just moved in the area. My family's back here, and I want to go, visit my family. So I'll just work from home, because traffic takes a while. And I'm like, just like what you said, unfortunately, in the position we're in, you got to be in touch with, manufacturing technicians, other engineers, other team members, to get the job done. And you're right. Emails and instant messengers and texts and all that. And I mean, in my company, I'm sure you got the same thing too, is that like, we can't use our cell phones at work. The texting, if you take a break, yeah, you go in the lunchroom and do stuff, but then, you're not, mainly because they have cameras built into them. And just like you said, NDA, they don't want you taking pictures, uh, the customer does, of their product.
Yeah.
It's too easy in today's environment to do that. So, you know, when you're trying to communicate with somebody that's working from home, I don't know how many times it's like, well, I'm going to be working from home today. Okay. If I send you an email, I expect you to answer the email very shortly. Or if I call you, for you to, unless you're on another conference call, to pick up the phone. Or if I text you, respond. And I don't know how many times I sit there and I got to get an answer from somebody that's working from home. I send them an email. I try to call them. I try to text them. And, 3 or 4 hours later, I get a message back and I'm like, no, see, if you were in here, I could get that, you know, outside of you being in the meeting room, I'd come up to you and say, okay, what are we going to do about this? And we can get that taken care of immediately versus 4 hours later, I might have a line shut down because they're waiting on an answer. And that's very frustrating to me when people say, well, I just want to work from home. They're doing their laundry, they're watching their kids and all that. And I never had that opportunity. And I never want that opportunity. It's like you said, work is work, home is home.
Yeah. I do remember, like, one of the reasons why people are, like, I don't know, like, I'm not going to say that everyone does it. I just heard about this, and I'm wondering if there are a few people that do that where the idea is that by working at home, if you have four, different, working at home jobs and that you have them concurrently, the idea is like, well, I'll have four different incomes kind of thing, or that. I don't know how many people actually can take advantage of it, but I've heard about it. And I imagine, like, that's one of the ideas is, like, to
Very
kind
good.
of, yeah, to do that.
Well, I mean, then you're going to do four jobs poorly because you're going to be concentrating on four things at the same time, four different jobs, may have four different requirements.
Yeah.
And my thing is, I understand in today's things, well, we can do everything from home. I said, well, yeah, but no. I think it's good that you get communication with the other team members in the manufacturing. Take a look at the people that are working building the things. Or they can't do it from home, right? They got to
Yeah.
be there welding and putting the stuff together. And if you're working from home and they're saying, well, they're getting paid good money, but they get to sit at home. I got to come in here every day, and put this together. And my hard work is direct labor, which is paying their salary. So that's what I'm saying is it makes it actually, and I don't know how we can stress this enough. If you get respect from the people on the floor, you will always shine in the company. Top management may not like you, but if they see that you get stuff done and you're able to get stuff done because the people on the floor, when you come and ask them a question or a favor or something, they get a respect for you. Help is there to answer, and this guy's ready to go and do it. And George, he's always, anytime I give him a call on the phone, he's right there and he helps me, and I can do my job quickly, and you get a good respect on that.
Yeah.
So again, working at home doesn't do that. I mean, some people are afraid to go to the floor. They're like, well, that's not my job. And that's what I see with some of the younger engineers now. Well, I don't want to go to the floor. And it's like, you should live on the floor. in a manufacturing environment.
Yeah.
Learn the jobs. Sit there and put the stuff together.
Yeah. Um, I would say, like, and that's a good point, that you brought up, Daddysquatch. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting, mention regarding that. I guess, I would say it would be my turn to do a volley, which,
Or
in my case, this kind of gets into, like, a broader topic where, like, and I'm sure you're going to tell me about this, that a lot of, boomers seem to have, like, looking down on Gen Zers for not being able to do certain skills. But then again, at the same time, Gen Zers I've seen have actually turned around and said, well, we're not able to do things like change our own tires or change our own oils. But on the other end of the spectrum, we see you guys, being confused, with technology. So the idea is like, it's kind of that thing where it's like, boomers kind of looking at themselves, as superior for having these, hardened skills, but then it's like, well, actually, you guys have confusion with these skills, so what's going on?
yeah, well, that's a true point. In my thing, I'd like to think that I mentor people for work and work skills. But yeah, it's like some basic skills that help you be self sufficient. Um, and you have to have an interest in doing it too. I won't argue about the technology. I have a smartphone. I probably don't use it anywhere close to people of your generation where they're able to do so many different things with apps and stuff like that. But I'm like, of course, I looked at my dad. You know, Dad, get a computer. You can go on the internet. He said, nope. He said, forget it. I'm too old to learn it. And sometimes you get to that point where it's just like, I'm done learning. And just give me something simple to use, and I'll be happy.
I mean,
But you got to remember too is that I grew up most of my life without the internet.
true.
You know, and I grew up most of my life without a smartphone. So it's like, well, I was able to do things before this stuff came on. That's why you don't see that instant adaption of or adoption of some of the technical because you get to a certain point in your life and you're like, yes, this is great. You can do this, you can do that, but I don't really need to do that. I'd rather keep it simple.
But it's like that idea of, like, you're, kind of looking down on people for not possessing skills like changing oils, changing oil or doing things like that. But then, we have skills, with technology, which you guys don't possess, that kind of thing. And it's like, you
Well,
know,
now, but be careful. I've got skills in technology, but I don't embrace it as much. It's like that, but I would say that in even today's vehicles, when we talk about changing oil and changing tires and stuff, very different from when I was, young. I worked at this is the before they had every gas station was a convenience store. When I was growing up, they were service stations. So you'd have the gas station have 2 or 3 bays in there, and they would repair cars. They do oil changes. They do brake work, but they did it right there. So um, they had to have people help. In fact, in the state I grew up in, and they still do it today, is that you can't pump your own gas. Somebody's got to go out there and pump your gas. And which is weird because when I was growing up, yeah, that's my first jobs were working in a gas station. That's all I did is a person come in, you'd fill up the tank, you'd take the money, and there, and pretty soon, you'd help out in the shop, and you'd learn how to change oil, you'd learn how to do that and stuff. So I guess it depends on the opportunity. I mean, how often do you change oil? 4 or 5 times a year.
yeah,
How often do you change a tire? Not very often.
yeah.
So I mean, is it a skill? Yeah, because when you're on the side of the road and you got a flat tire, it's a good skill to have. to do it, but depending if you're in town and you got AAA or whatever, call them up because you don't want to sit there and you're on a highway and changing a tire on a highway, cars didn't pass you. It's very nerve wracking. You know, I always like to think that you should have a good set of skills to make you self sufficient.
Girls like men with skills, ninja skills, nunchuck skills, computer hacking skills, those kinds of skills.
Well, sharpening a knife. My kitchen knives. So I've bought things now to where I can sharpen my own knives and stuff because a dull knife is a dangerous knife. But go on YouTube. I will. That's one thing I have adopted very heavily is YouTube. Not for the videos out there, for the goofy meme and all that stuff, for the music and stuff, but the how to do things that people post on YouTube is amazing. I mean, if you wanted to learn how to change a tire, you go on YouTube and say, I have a Chevy Malibu, how do I change a tire? They will show you how to change a tire. And you're like, oh, okay, that doesn't look that hard. The only hard part about changing a tire is where's the jack, getting it up in the air, and then breaking loose the lug nuts, so you can take them off, put the other tire on, tighten up the lug nuts and stuff. But for myself, like changing a headlight in cars, it used to be way back in the day, those were very easy to do. Today, in order to change a headlight in your mother's car, the Equinox, I have to take off the front tire and come in from the back side. I wouldn't, or I mean the front tire, not the back tire, but I wouldn't have known that unless I used technology, YouTube. So,
I love how you like to that, and I've seen this in your conversations. How you like to shit talk the internet, and yet you use the internet.
I do. Yeah, I do. You caught me there. So, I mean, do I like the internet? Of course. I mean, it's like one of those greatest inventions. I mean, uh, your mother and I are booking a trip to, and book the trip, the airline tickets, and the hotels, and the rental car. I mean, you used to have to go to a travel agent. Go to a travel agent. They come back. They'd have a fee embedded in there, and they'd have everything all taken care of. But then you get there, and you're like, oh, how do I get to the hotel? Where's this in the airport? Whereas today on the internet, we booked our own flights. We picked our seats. We rented hotels. We were able to drop, on the map, the little thing and look on the outside of, oh, okay, this is where this hotel's at. And the same with the rental car. And then we were able to get, pretty much do it all through the internet and different sites. So, yeah, I give it crap, but I use it too.
All right.
I'm just like I said, I'm not that dependent on it, but I do enjoy it when I need it.
Oh, and you're telling me you don't get any entertainment from the internet? Any at all?
Such if I can get free movies, that's about it.
Oh, BS. BS. You were like, Ghantt. I love that War of the Worlds 1934 video that you showed me. That series was really cool. Ghantt, you ever heard of this thing that I found online? It's called, Sasquatch Chronicles. Hey, Ghantt, you ever heard these great music videos? Like, I'm just rolling my eyes and being like, bullshit. You are involved with the internet. Don't you dare try to look down on me. Oh, you damn kids with your internets, and I use the internet myself. But don't you dare judge me for it.
That's right. You're learning. But here's the thing I don't do on the internet, like Discord here. We're on Discord.
Yes.
Would I have looked up that? No.
But it is useful, isn't it?
Well, allows us to do communications so we're not doing it on the phone, and then you can embed videos and all that. But it's I'm using. I don't use it all the time, but it's when we have our discussions. It's a easy platform to use.
Yeah.
Um,
And I use it
you
mostly
know,
to, talk with people online, see some, to meet with people, that kind of thing, talk with people via community chats and stuff like that. Got to meet a few friends through Discord. That's the power of the internet.
there you go. No, I give you grief about the internet and all that. I guess what I look at is some people on their smartphones with about 20 million different apps for a bunch of stuff. And Friday I went to a seminar. The guy at work was putting it on AI and what he uses AI for, and I'm like, you know, the power of what he was doing with it and all that. And I'm kind of like, well, maybe if I was 20 years younger, I'd be putzing with it. But I've watched too many Terminator movies. That's that AI stuff just scares me, especially when I see, uh, you know, the the dog thing that Dynamics made, or you're looking on the internet and now they got uh, humanoids
Yeah.
in AI, and I'm just like, yeah, Terminator.
Well, I think my personal opinion about, artificial intelligence is that no matter what, the technology is going to be built. Like, there's always going to be someone out there that is going to be working on it. And I think that the threat of AI is not going to come from AI itself, but mankind's inability to understand AI. We need to be able to understand what we're dealing with. I think that can be said about a lot of technologies that once you understand what its capacity is, what it can do, and the ways that it can be utilized both for good and bad, that's how we can demystify the technology and make it less scary.
Yeah, but it's one of these things that you know I get nervous with that because it's almost like we're, in a sense, you're almost like you're playing God. You're creating something, and once it gets to be self-aware and say, "Hey, we don't need you anymore,"
Well,
and they're not a help; they're a competition, and that's where you got to keep it. That AI should be there to help you, but not to compete with. And that's the thing I get nervous about.
I agree.
But I'll be 20 feet or 6 feet under the ground by that time.
All right. Well, I think it's time for Daddysquatch to have his volley.
Well, I think I've been volleying enough, but I guess.
I mean, I got a few, but I figured give you, back and forth kind of thing.
Oh, I just this is going to be just like typical old people. Is that the older people always look at the younger people and say they never worked as hard as we did, or they've got it so much better than we did. And, I take a look at my dad and how he grew up, and my grandfather and how he grew up, and our grandfathers and stuff, and you look at, I got it so much easier than they did. And I like to think that we made it easier for you kids, or well, for my sibling or children, that they had it easier than I had it, and then I had it easier than my dad had it. And my dad had it easier than his dad had it, and I mean that's the thing we do. It's normal course things. Is just to make sure that if you're a good human being, you make sure that you do better for your kids than was done to you.
Yeah.
You know? But I take a look at in today's thing is I want people to be more aware, I guess. Um, it gets kind of back to the college thing, where they feel they have to go to college and they take a degree that's, I hate to say, for better or for worse, is worthless because they didn't research, is there jobs in this field? What do these jobs pay? And will I be able to get a job when I graduate? Because you take a look at going to college these days. It's freakishly nightmare cost wise.
Like,
And you're getting a degree for, I saw some of these things for environmental science. Well, how many environmental science jobs are out there?
I mean,
You know,
there
case in
was.
point.
So, this is something that I remember watching a video about, like, the top 10 most useless degrees. And one of them was basically a custom make your own degree kind of thing. And I'm like, all I could think of is, like, they're not even hiding the fact it's a scam at this point. But then it made me think of like what kind of joke degrees could you make? And here's my joke degree that I had in mind. It is a degree in astronomy as well as geology, and combined with that, zoology, but zoology focusing on animals larger than humans. This degree, I call it wombology, the study of wombo.
Well, here's my degree that I would like to get. It is oral penmanship.
Describe it.
What's that?
Describe it.
Well, it's like if you want to make a cursive Y, you say Y. See, cursive Y, oral penmanship.
I mean, there are some people. I guess this is the limitation of the English written language is you have to sort of use context to determine what a person means, but it's you know basically having to say context. Like saying, for example, "have a nice life" kind of thing. Is the person
Well,
saying, have a nice life, like have a, I hope that things are going well for you, or are they saying, oh, have a nice life, as in I don't ever want to talk to you ever again? And it's like you gotta take the context in it.
all true, but I guess that's what I'm we talk about that, your Walmart degree, my oral penmanship, but the problem is there's a lot of people out there getting degrees in, very tight fields. I was just talking to a guy I work with, and his son got a degree in finance. And I said, "Oh, he's going to work for an insurance company." And he said, "Yep." And he's going to sell insurance. Yep. Which is not what his degree is, but that's about the only place he can get a job in finance.
Yeah,
And that's sad because he's took business courses, and I mean your uncle, same thing. Got a degree in finance. He was a sales or worked for insurance companies, and then he got all it done. And he ended up, it's like he didn't like it. Became a contractor for building houses and stuff. So it's sad when you take all this time, you spend all this money to get a degree that you can't get a job in, and then you're bitter.
yeah,
I don't blame people, but they're bitter that they can't get a job, and then they're also bitter is that you know, yeah, I've got this debt I got to pay for. You know, and my thing is that no matter what, you may have to take 2 or 3 jobs, while you're young in your thing to pay that off.
yeah,
And it sucks. For a couple of years of your life, you're gonna be, ugh, this is horrible. But classic example, when your mother and I got married and we had our first kid, we wanted to move into a house. We are still in an apartment, and uh, we went out to the realtor. We're looking to buy houses, and back when we were looking at houses, they were very strict as far as who they gave loans to, and they looked at our financials, and we were $30,000 in debt. And they said, I mean, we both had good jobs, but still, we had that debt, and they basically said, until you get rid of that debt, you can't buy a house. And what happened was luckily the company offered people, engineers, to work on the lines during the weekends because they're shorthanded people. And I said, all you had to do is do what they do on third shift. So I would get done with working the whole week, and then on the weekends, Friday night to Saturday morning, and then Saturday night to Sunday morning, I would work third shift. But I did that for a year, and I was able to save all that money to get us out of debt. So then a year and a half later, we bought a house. But Those are things that unfortunately you got to recognize and you got to take care of. And you can't run to the government and say, "Forgive my debt." The government shouldn't have given the money to you in the first place. In student loans, if you were going to take a degree that they said, "Well, what are you going to get a job in this?" You know, I hate to be cruel about that, but uh, if the government to forgive it, I mean that raises our tax dollars, and then you, me, and everybody else has got to pay for people that got to play at college.
Yeah, like I can see what you mean. Like I remember, like one of the movies, like I decided to watch like a boomer movie, and I feel like it was kind of a product of its time, but with the whole Animal House. I was watching
Mhm.
that where the guys were just like, "Oh, we're gonna study our classes," but they weren't really studying their classes. Like we're supposed to think of these kids as like, "Oh, they're fighting against society. They just want to have fun." And I'm like, "You guys are a frat house that your house is destroyed. You're flunking out of every class you're a part of, and you're doing things that are just straight up illegal. Like you're doing a bunch of things. Like I don't like. Yes, in that trial scene where they're doing like the whole, putting the whole fraternity on trial. Yes, they were admittingly being railroaded in that situation, but the the dean of the university, Mr. Wormsworth or whatever his name was, I don't blame him for deciding to try to get rid of this fraternity. Especially after everything they've done, and especially with the ending where they have like that whole tank and they destroy an entire parade. And I'm like, be thankful you did that in the '60s and not the early 2000s, because you guys would have been labeled domestic terrorists.
Oh well, not necessarily, but um, yeah, and I mean it was basically at that time. Uh, you got to remember too is that everybody, if you went to college, they didn't really care about your grades. It just you had to graduate. And that was an old, back then now versus when I went to college. Yeah, they took a look at every grade you had when you're interviewing with the company and stuff. But that's the whole thing. It's like, you know, did I have fun in college? Yeah, there's a couple parties I went to and fun stuff, but it wasn't like Animal House. I mean, I 90% of my time was studying and working on class projects and all that because I wanted to get, I had worked in factories, I had worked in other jobs, and you just weren't making much money. And I wanted to have a future.
Yeah,
And that's what I was going towards. And the same for you too. I mean, you sacrificed a lot. You did uh, different things to keep the cost down, but you graduated without a debt. You know, by a lot of hard work, internships, and working while you were going to school. So, well, that's the thing is that, and you're taking a degree that was, it was marketable. But I mean, when you graduated from college, it took you a while to get, a good job. You had to take some other jobs, and, in the interim, but then now you're got a good engineering job.
yeah.
You
So
know,
my next volley that I think I would put down is I don't understand why, okay, I understand why boomers say this, where they look at us for having, for being fans of like really goofy things, but I'm like, you guys had goofy things yourselves. Like, don't be there. Like, for example, I remember trying to describe to you The Last Airbender, and as a kid, and I remember you just basically like, okay, okay, there's a war and humans can control four elements with their minds, and there's this great hero. I don't care. You just like, I don't care. Ganchart, stop watching Avatar. You need to clean your room. It's like, Daddysquatch, I want to watch Avatar. No buts.
clean your room. Oh, we had our shows too. I mean, God, my mom, Gilligan's Island. We get done with school, we get done with the paper out, we come home, and there we had that on the TV. Oh, Gilligan's Island. Da, 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 da. I mean, that's a horrible show if you take a look at it today, but in its day, it was funny. And oh, my mother, she'd come in there and she'd roll her eyes. She goes, if they could make a bamboo car, they should be able to make a boat and get off that stupid island. Yeah. Oh, we had our goofy things too and stuff. I think each generation has that. Cartoons. I mean, God, you take a look at the cartoons we watch as kids. Whew, they were horrible.
Yeah.
If you would YouTube this show, I think everybody should have some fun with this one. It was Saturday mornings, but Sid and Marty Krofft made all these really kind of bizarre shows. But this is a staple for when I was a kid. But one of them was called HR Puff and Stuff, which was a dragon on this island, and all these imaginary characters are on this island. This kid with a magic flute gets shipwrecked on this island, so he's staying with HR Puff and Stuff. But and the evil witch on there, Witchy Poo, was always trying to steal the flute. So every Saturday morning, will she get the flute this time? Oh, Jamie, be safe. But now take a look at the name, HR Puff and Stuff. Okay, the guys that created the show, Puff and Stuff was a reference to smoking marijuana.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for all those that go on YouTube, you can see it, and you just like, oh my god, kids actually watch that.
I mean, here's an idea for another OK Boomer, OK Zoomer episode. Maybe we'll do this at a future time. We just watch some of your goofy cartoons and just do some reactions to them, and I'm just like, Daddysquatch, what is this?
Yeah, I could dig up some bad, and some horrible commercials too.
I remember seeing one cartoon from the 70s, and I'm just like, this was a thing where,
What was that?
okay, let me tell you the idea. So it's a cartoon based on Charlie's Angels. What you're thinking, like, with Charlie's Angels, I don't know much about it other than they're just an organization that, do missions, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
But here's the twist. It takes place in the future. But no, we have an extra twist. Because not only is it Charlie's Angels in the future, but, where they have like all the Jetsons and all that stuff, but they also have Casper the Friendly Ghost, and I am not making this up. This is an actual TV show for the 70s.
Oh, I'm sure they did. I mean, let's put it this way: imagination wasn't, and they made cartoons over actual shows. Just like you said, Charlie's Angels. At that time it was very popular, but it was popular for a different reason. It wasn't that good of a show, but you know. But then you had Magnum PI, and you had the cartoons. I have to admit, uh, there there were some gem cartoons that I really thought were done really good. Unfortunately, I wasn't uh, a kid at the time. I was more of an adult. New kids were watching. I was like, "Oh, that's pretty good." Like Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Invader
Invade.
Sim,
Yeah,
SpongeBob.
uh,
I mean, it still
Spon-
holds up. I mean, the early episodes, I mean.
Ren and oh yeah, the early episode Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at these things like, oh my god, they're funny. Better than the cartoons. I did like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, but it's interesting when you watch the old Bugs Bunny cartoons. Some of the dialogue in there when I was a kid, I didn't understand. And as you get to an adult, you understand it because the old Bugs Bunny cartoons were not meant for children. They'd have them for the theaters, and it was like, you know, at the start of a movie or between movies, they'd show these cartoons, but it was made for adults. So the language in there and the references they did, if you're an adult at the time, it was funny. If you're a kid watching it, you just like the colors and you like the music and the characters being goofy, but you're like, classic line in there.
Yeah.
There was Bugs Bunny was having Elmer Fudd. He was mimicking a game show they had there, $64,000 question. I don't know what the exact name was, but Groucho Marx was it. Well, Bugs Bunny goes up to Elmer Fudd, and Elmer Fudd, he's asking him the question. He says, and the question was, you had to answer yes or no. Have you stopped beating your wife? And I was like, when you're a kid, you're not thinking about that too much because he's getting confused because if he said yes, that means he was beating his wife. And if he said no, then it meant he didn't stop beating his wife. So, I mean, but as a kid, you're like, oh, okay, I didn't really, kind of flew over your head, but then you go back and you're like, ooh, I could see why they had to kind of clean up their language in Bugs Bunny.
I mean, I remember watching one episode of Bugs Bunny, okay, watching bits of it, but when we were at, the farm, with, your parents, and you guys were, you and my aunts and uncles, you were watching, like, this Bugs Bunny cartoon. It's like, oh, Bugs Bunny, I want to watch it. But then you were just like, Ghantt, get out. You're not supposed to watch this. And I'm like, why? I think it was like, but as an adult, I could see why, because it was like that Bugs Bunny cartoon where Bugs Bunny had to thwart the evil Japanese. And it was a very racist caricature.
Oh, yeah. But it was during World War II. But yeah, and even they've got it to where Adolf Hitler's flying a bomber into Russia and he gets sabotaged by the gremlins.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, they did that for World War II. But, yeah, some of these cartoons, they're banned. You can't see them. In fact, there's some that were very racist cartoons at the time. But at the time, that was accepted. Now today it isn't, and I for good reasons.
Yeah.
And I just, God, we just did a drift, didn't we? What were we talking about?
Well, I think we were talking about like
shows.
Yeah.
Boomer and
Boomers versus Zoomers. But I thought this was an interesting tangent.
Oh, it was. That's funny how we kind of.
I mean, we're
talking about cartoons.
We're talking about like how you guys would look down at us for our goofy shows, but then it's like, no, you guys have goofy shows, so it's still attached to the topic. And it's straight too far.
No, I that I never, as far as what shows you watch today, some of them are. It's interesting with today's shows versus back, then. I don't know. It's my disappointment with TV shows is it's usually detectives, police, fire, hospital, or lawyers. It's right there. Occasionally you get, a different profession in there that they, like Big Bang Theory. Okay, how often do you get them with the scientist in there?
Yeah.
I still didn't like the way that it kind of talked down to Howard.
Well, I mean, do you want a show called Engineers? Actually, no. There is a show about engineers. It's called Dilbert.
Oh. Well,
I mean, Dilbert's an engineer.
Dilbert's an engineer, but I mean, I always like watching like Apollo 13. I don't know if you've ever watched Apollo 13.
Yes.
Okay. But the astronauts had the accident or the issue on the space flight, but it showed how they were surviving. But what I always got a kick too is that they did show the engineers trying to figure out remotely how they could get them back. It's like, okay, how do we do this? How do we make a square filter fit in a round hole with what they have in that spaceship? And okay, we're gonna get in the planet. Okay, how do we get enough energy to light up the systems but not shut down the systems? And I always like that, because it's within the field we're in right now. We're always problem solving. I mean, every day, I'm sure you are too. It's just every day a new problem.
Yeah.
We got to solve it.
I mean,
we got to solve it.
I mean, and I know you like to look, final volley is that you guys like to look down. Well, kind of going back to the internet about how we use the internet, but I sometimes see people use the internet in really interesting ways. For like to solve problems. Like, are you familiar with "He Will Not Divide Us" flag incidences? So, what was it? Shia LaBeouf decided to make an art exhibition, where it would be like a painting, like "He Will Not Divide Us," referencing Donald Trump during 2016 when he became president for the first time. And people decided, to screw around with it because it would have like a webcam, so people would just, go there, make fools of themselves, that kind of thing. But then Shia LaBeouf just got sick and tired of it, moves it to Albuquerque, but then the Albuquerque Museum are like, no, we're not going to let you put this piece. I forget the reason why. So he's like, all right, I'm going to put a flag in the middle of a swamp. No one will be able to find it, and I'll have a webcam. Nobody will interrupt it. It's my piece. Nobody will be able to do anything with it. Now, the thing about it is that the people on the internet decided they're going to try to figure out, where this flag was located, just to mess with people, or just to mess with Shia LaBeouf. Here's how they did it. Number one, they used 3 planes that were seen flying across the sky to triangulate the location, as well as, to try to figure out, using air traffic data and all that. They also used the stars to help narrow down the location. They noticed that there were frogs croaking in the background, so based on that, it has to be somewhere, within a wetlands. They also used the fact that Shia LaBeouf was seen at this area, and based on, the position of the sun at the time, they were able to figure out the relative time zone. Eventually, they narrowed it down to some place in Tennessee. They had one guy literally honking his horn, and then they would have, watching the stream, basically saying, you're getting closer, hot, hot, cold, 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 hot, hot. Eventually, they were able to capture the flag, and then replace it with a MAGA hat, just to troll them. And I think it's amazing, regardless of whether or not you support or hate Trump, you still can't deny that that is pretty impressive that they were able to figure out where this flag was located. Because all they had was a flag that was just on a sky backdrop, but they were able to figure out where it was located. So when you were talking about with the whole Apollo 13 thing, I think there's still that, that there's still that impressive skills there. We just don't hear about them as much. And I think that there are other stories that are pretty interesting that I think you get a kick out of it, of people trying to figure out how to solve different problems, Yeah.
But I'm at this point right now, and I know we're getting close to the close, but I will never give Zoomers any kind of grief anymore. I have changed my attitude.
And I will.
And do you know why?
Why?
Because I'm retiring, and you guys got to pay for my Social Security.
And I will give, the boomers, like my father, Daddysquatch, I will not rag on him. And do you know why?
You want inheritance.
Bingo! Alright, so that was our episode of Okay Boomer, Okay Zoomer, where the boomers versus the zoomers. We might do this again at some point, but I think this was a really good episode. Daddysquatch, do you have any wisdoms that you want to share with the audience before we go?
I think we give each other grief, but at the end,
we're just people trying to figure out things.
Right. It will always be envious of somebody else because they either have it easier or whatever. But like I said, in my opinion here, when I work with Zoomers at work, I always try to be a mentor and try to help them get through things because when I was the little young boomer working with the other people, they always did that for me too.
Okay.
So
to be their Obi-Wan Kenobi, teaching them the ways of the Force.
Well, okay, I'll be Obi-Wan. He's cool.
All right. Well, you can find this podcast and other podcast episodes like this on YouTube and Spotify. If you guys have any ideas, make sure to comment down below. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.